that I invite to join me on the podium. Rhoda Green, her son Dwayne. Robert, do you want to join us, or any and all of the Barbados contingent that was recently on a somewhat independent excursion to find our roots in Barbados, and we had a fabulous trip. I went myself, and I could speak at some length about it, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to save that for Miss Rhoda and a little presentation that Dwayne Green has for us from the trip. I do have this proclamation, so let me just make that. And I guess I'll just say that I've always heard, I first heard it from Rhoda about 30 years ago, about the connection between Carolina and Barbados. And when you go down there and you meet the people, by the way, they don't say Barbadian, they say Bajan. And the connection between not just Gullah peoples and Bajan, but all of Carolina, the connection is palpable. It's everywhere. It's amazing. So here's a proclamation. Whereas the government of Barbados and the city of Charleston recognize historic and mutual bonds leading to a dual declaration way back on November 14th in 1997, and nearly 25 years to the day, a delegation of 53 Charlestonians took a trip to Barbados to further cement this bond and signify a sister city relationship recognized by programs Sister Cities International. And whereas there continues to be strong tie of kinship, history, friendship, trade, and commerce between the city of Charleston and the island nation of Barbados, which recently became an independent sovereign state in November of 2021. So this year is the first anniversary, November 30th. Whereas the government of Barbados warmly welcome a delegation of Charlestonians with the aim of continuing diplomatic, economic, and cultural ties for the mutual benefit of both citizens of Barbados and the city of Charleston. And whereas Rhoda Green, right here, a native of Barbados and a citizen of Charleston, has continuously served as the honorary consul of South Carolina to Barbados. Her steadfast work with the Barbados Carolinas Legacy Foundation has proved instrumental in helping forge ties between Charleston, Spicetown, the South Carolina Heritage Corridor, and Sister Cities International through the work of her foundation. And whereas it is the intention of both Barbados and Charleston to continue exploring this relationship for the benefit, growth, and sustainability of our respective communities, and whereas the city of Charleston and the town of Spicetown, Barbados, that's the town from which the first vessel that came to settle Charlestown actually set sail from Spicetown in the parish of St. Peter, wish to remain united in a lasting sister city relationship and pledge themselves to enter into the exchange of information, experiences, and ideas with regard to culture, social, artistic, educational, recreational, scientific, and commercial endeavors. And whereas November 30th, next week, is the first anniversary of Barbados becoming an independent republic. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, do proclaim Wednesday, November 30th, as Charleston Spicetown Sister City Day and Barbados Independence Day in the City of Charleston. And we will fly the Barbados national flag as a memento on November 30th. We're planning to do that. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Rhoda Green, but before I do, I just want to relay one experience, and that was on the day before we left. We were honored to be called for a meeting with the Prime Minister of Barbados. Her name is Mia Mottley. You may have seen Prime Minister Mottley address the United Nations a few times earlier this year. She is a powerful leader and has a big future ahead of her. But her accolades to this woman right here, Rhoda Green, from the Prime Minister of Barbados, was just amazing. She personally recognized the work that Rhoda has done for decades now to bring this connection to light and shine light upon it. And Rhoda, you've just done a fabulous job. And it was endearing to me to hear the Prime Minister of Barbados say that to you. It was just amazing. Miss Rhoda Green, everybody.
Mayor Hecklenburg, members of City Council, and guests. This is indeed a privilege to be able to say a few words. What I'm going to do today is pretty much put the words or the remarks that I'm going to make within a historical context. Barbados was settled in 1627. Charleston was settled in 1670. What occurred on those two places, far removed one from the other, set the tone and set up a change of events in history, forever linking Barbados and the Carolinas. Yes, we had settlers who were from England, settled Barbados, and learned how to function in a situation that they had no experience with before. And so, to speed up the story, they turned the island, Barbados, into what historians call the first enslaved colony, or some of our American historians call Barbados the culture hearth of the Western Hemisphere. Another one went further and called Carolina a colony of Barbados. And so that relationship was forged early. Not only were people traveling, the whole system that was set up in Barbados became very profitable. And it was moved from Barbados to the other Caribbean colonies that were settled by the British. And ultimately, here in the Carolinas, 1670, they brought everything that they knew, all of the skills, everything that they had owned, the trial and failure. They were able to come with something that they called the Barbados model. That model was transplanted here. We have lived through centuries. Barbados became the first British colony that only England had any control of in the Caribbean. It became an island that had a Black majority very early in its settlement. The same thing happened here in the Carolinas. It had a Black majority early in its settlement. What is important, that system that they brought was implemented. And interestingly enough, people who come to Charleston, people who go to Barbados, they see things that they sense something is amiss with this. Some of them know what it is, others don't. But those are the influences that bind us. And I can just run through them quickly because Mayor talked about some of them in terms of the architecture, the economy, the education, genealogy, governance, language, dialect, Gullah, Bajan, laws, military endeavors, people, piracy, plantations, politics, religion, trade, art, food, fashion, music. All of those influences we share together. One of the things that I think is very important for us today is the fact that people was a very important part. We know how people were stratified, they were divided, they were stratified. But the interdependency of people was very important. Back then, today it is. And one of the things that we accomplished in Barbados when we went, in the past, we have dealt with some of the culture, the heritage, the history, the architecture. We looked at the churches and saw the similarities. As a matter of fact, when I was told that I was going to ask to do this, I asked our historian at the public library, is there any record of a mayor visiting Barbados? Do you have any record of it? And she said, the first thing that we have was an invitation that was made to Mayor Riley when he was mayor to visit Barbados, and he didn't. He didn't come, he sent a representative. So today I'm saying, Mayor Riley is the first mayor. Mayor Tecklenburg, I'm sorry. Mayor Riley was the first one who was given the invitation. And so I'll back up and say, Mayor Tecklenburg is the first mayor that is recorded in the history from Charleston that visited Barbados. So that's the first. I think we should give him a hand. Thank you. Moving quickly along, we looked at the past, but this time we took a different group. We took a group that focused on trade because trade was very important during that colonial period. One of the interesting things, people, enslaved people, were one of the commodities that were traded. So here we are looking at people, a very vital part in a society, a very vital part in any community. And so we are focusing this time as we look at our history and we kind of look at the past and see things that we probably can do, we can do differently, we can look at it differently. And so we look at the trading part of what used to be part of the Barbados model, and we updated it to the pact where we are talking about other opportunities of engagement, again, people engaging with people. And in order to make this thing come alive, to breathe history into, or breathe life into history, we are looking at the things that worked back during the colonial period, and we are remodeling it. We are making it new. We are taking new approaches. And so when we visited Barbados, it was an opportunity to engage. And Mayor Tecklenburg talked about our Prime Minister, Mottley. She has arisen as a voice for the developing countries, coastal areas. We, in terms of connecting, we have talked about the International African American Museum. We have talked about what we can do with the College of Charleston to extend and to look at genealogy, because there are all of these influences that bind us together. We are now teasing them and seeing how they can work for us today. So Mayor Tecklenburg was able to meet our Prime Minister, and I'll tell you a secret right now. They all endorsed him as an honorary Bajan. So here it is. He's an honorary Bajan. But there's work ahead for us today. And it's a great opportunity to have a situation like this, where we can look at how we can bring people together, giving each person and attributing to each person the value that he or she has, because we, again, will continue to work with each other. Human interdependency is something that is not going to go away. And as far as the Barbados and the Carolinas and the relationship that has been established and has been pretty much monumented in certain opportunities, every time we can get one, we embrace it. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to kind of share a little bit, but we'll be staying in touch with you, and we will be looking at the ways that we can strengthen the ties that we have, because we all need each other. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Shea.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the proclamation for recognizing us, Queen. And Of course, we all knew of Ms. Green, but I got to know her a little bit better during our failed, I guess, or suspended commemoration of Charleston 350. I learned that she served on our commission back then and was very instrumental and informative of what all that she just mentioned to us today about the connection between Charleston and Barbados. And the settlement of Charleston could not have been without the Barbados and their support. And it was an ongoing support throughout the early days of the colony. So I just wanted to say thank you for the wonderful report and thank you for agreeing to serve on that commission. Even though we didn't launch the way we wanted to launch and it didn't take off the way it did, it was still very informative and very educational. And we've got an ongoing story that we need to be telling. And I know you will continue to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Dwayne has a really brief slide, and if I could ask everybody to come back off the stage so everybody can see the screen. Rhoda, I'm going to give the proclamation to you. So good to see you again, Robert, Ian. Good to see you. All right, Dwayne, take it away.
Thank you all. And again, so great to see so many familiar faces. Mayor Tecklenburg, thank you for your unwavering support and honoring my mother. And I want to say thank you and greetings to council. I see so many familiar faces and some of you have already met my mother. And had you been walking down this street, say 30 years ago, it wouldn't be uncommon at the next courtroom over, which is now the probate court. It used to be the main court before Hugo. And my mother was a court reporter for Louis Condon, the master equity. And if you went in there, and I know some members of the bar, Seekings and also Shahid here, went in and went to that courtroom in between breaks, you'd hear her talking about Barbados and talking about education and how Barbados was over 99% literate and one of the great success stories for education. I took the liberty of taking some pictures of this trip and let you as council members know the importance of proclamations. Because as you heard, Barbados and Charleston recently had an event promoting trade investment with one another, and that's Barbados 3.0. And as you heard my mother reference, Barbados came in the 1600s and had a system that was built here. But when there was another wave that came, and it's a wave of people and ideas, and it's very fitting that we honored the native Indians that were here because many of you know that some West Indians came in the 70s from Jamaica and from Barbados. The Rashfords came down and they're family members of us. My mother came down and learned about Charleston. And while she was working there, she saw the familiarity of the buildings, the architecture. And while working with Judge Condon, she had the idea to send me to Porter-Gaud. I went there and one of my classmates, his father worked in this building. His name was Joe Riley. And Mayor Riley took interest in that story. And so when we talk about starting of a proclamation, how important what you do is, nearly 25 years to this week, this council, not this exact council, but this council issued a proclamation. And what it said is that not only did it do the twinning between Spicetown and Barbados, but it was that proclamation that named my mother as a honorary consul, because it was Alex Harvin and I think then Councilwoman Brenda Scott that went down to Barbados. And so that proclamation started her talking to Charlestown Landing and to a lot of the places that you see the story reflected around town, Middleton Place, Drayton Hall, forming the information, forming the discussions and going. As a matter of fact, there's a group from Historic Charleston that's taking a cruise that's going down to Barbados in January. And we're all talking about the great information. So that led to February of this year. So Barbados was in the pandemic. As Councilman Shahid said, there was a planning for the 350th anniversary. And what happened is because of the pandemic, it stopped. Barbados came to a crashing halt. 20% of their island was without employment. And even with an island with 99% literacy, and where you are guaranteed education from pre-K all the way to PhD if you want it, that was still a toll for them to take. So what happened is my mother organized a celebration of their independence, and that took place on the peninsula at the Wanderer. And it was the mayor who was there, and they heard that Barbados was open for business. The history and the relationship that we've had has been mostly a cultural one. And that's why you've seen the Heritage Corridor. But we thought, what if Barbados could work with Carolina for some other things? Sea turtles. We both have a preservation of sea turtles. We also have issues of sustainability, sea level rise. And of course, the mayor worked with the Dutch dialogue, and that was part of the conversation. Also, Nita Weiss, who, as you all know, is head of Charleston's Sister Cities program, had already worked because the step after being a twin city is a sister city. And Charleston is a sister city with Spoleto, Italy, and obviously you all know how beneficial that was for the city. So we met in this room, and you see right here the newly appointed Consul General of Barbados, who serves under Mia Amor Mottley, and also his deputy here. So working with the consulate office, we made a plan to collectively commemorate the sister city relationship 25 years almost to the date that the two cities became twin cities. So we sat in the mayor's office, and the mayor pledged and said, not only was I planning to go to vacation in Barbados, but that was canceled because of the pandemic as well. So fate, circumstance, I call it God's grace, and all good things are due to God, and we are giving thanks for that. But plans were made for us to go and to get people in a short time frame to go to Barbados. Barbados rolled out the red carpet. And when I say they rolled out the red carpet, they got together all of the best of Barbados to show our delegation. And what does that mean? They had an Export Barbados, they had a business roundtable, and we talked about the various ways we can work together. Barbados also is opening a museum to commemorate their past also. And we went to a slave burial ground where there was 400 enslaved people buried, and had a ceremony there, and had the music and everything. But they not only rolled out the red carpet, they connected us with their Chamber of Commerce. Not many people know, Barbados has the oldest Chamber of Commerce in the Caribbean. Charleston has the oldest Chamber of Commerce in the United States. Our own Kenya Dunn from our Chamber of Commerce went down, gave a presentation to Barbados. Mayor gave some very good words, talking about the CRDA, what we're doing to encourage business here in Charleston. And that was just the beginning, because not only did they talk to us about the business of Barbados, but they showed us the arts and the culture. So we had dance. They set one major event a day. And it started with being welcomed by the Prime Minister at the Prime Minister's residence, where we were feted with different songs, Bajan food. If you've had Bajan food, you know it's amazing. You will get a chance of that. That's later in this presentation. We were, how can I say this? Barbados brought their best entertainment. So this gentleman right here, I guess he's the equivalent of our Bob Dylan, or the equivalent of our Bruce Springsteen, so far as someone who's a national hero. And he was voted as having the #1 song in Barbados of all time. And he performed that for us. This is Red Plastic Bag. He's obviously a very interesting character, but he is the equivalent of our Darius Rucker. So he came out on our tour and sang to us and serenaded us. We had school children that sang the Black National Anthem. We had dancers, and this was all specifically for our group. As said before, we also got to meet the Honorable Mia Mottley, who is the Prime Minister of Barbados. We thought that she was not going to be able to make it. She was at the UN, but came in and was able to get gifts from Charleston and from our delegation, just thanking her for her outreach to us. What she pledged is, I believe in this connection with Barbados and Charleston, and whatever I can do to help with your wanting to build commerce, wanting to build understanding and bonds, she's for that as well. And one of the projects we are working on is a joint project with the South Carolina Aquarium, where they will be also going down there. You'll see that our own Dr. Tanya Matthews gave a lecture down there, and also is instructing them in doing a joint project. Barbados has the second largest archive of genealogically records going back before the Civil War. And so what they're able to do is help people in South Carolina and the United States go back pre-1870 to get their, to get not only their family archives, but also their genealogy. This is our group. We had several business people from Charleston. Many of you know the Askews, many of you know the Martins, many of you know folks who work on Limehouse, obviously, people who are working in agriculture, people who are working in hemp. So I know that that means it's almost time for the end of my presentation. So I just want to thank you. So what is the point of all this? Barbados connection is strong as we make it. I want you to remember 2 dates, because there's 2 dates coming up that are very important. On December 10th, the Barbados Carolina Foundation is going to have our annual meeting. We're going to be talking about having this trip next year. And on January 21st, we're having a reception in conjunction with the South Carolina Aquarium and the IAM. We'll be bringing a delegation from Barbados, and we'd love for you to meet some of those delegates that welcomed us so that you can have some of the connection and the relationship building that we had. So thank you again for this, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your time.
Well, thank you, Dwayne. And I know that took a few minutes, but I think very worthwhile to share that experience. And I'll just add one more thing. I know that we're sister cities with Spicetown, right? I must share with you, it's not a very big town, it's a very small town. So, and we had the proclamation sharing again there. They don't have a mayor. They actually got away with mayors and city councils in Barbados for some reason about 50 years ago. So the member of parliament for that region was the highest ranking official. But anyway, when we met with the prime minister later or early the next week, I had a conversation with her, and I said, in all due respect to Spicetown that we love, the small town, I asked the prime minister, could a city be a sister with a country? And she said yes. So we kind of expand the realm of our sister city to having a sister country relationship with the whole Republic of Barbados. And I think great things are to come. And I can't thank Rhoda and Dwayne and all the team enough for just an amazing experience, but importantly for our city to make these connections. All right, next is our public hearings. We only have 20 of them tonight.